Linguistics.
Etymology and meaning of a linguistics as a discipline. The study of human languages. The word linguistics is derived from the Latin word for tongue, lingua. To be frank, this means that linguistics is a study of anything and everything to do with the language. As a result, the field is divided into several different areas.
These are the types of linguistics. Historical linguistics. Historical linguistics is the scientific study of how language changed over time. Social linguistics. Social linguistics is the study of how language is related to society. Example, under this study are differences in regional, class, and occupational, dialect, and bilingualism. Or regional. Regional, it depends on where you grow up. You get an accent when speaking. Class, upper class, lower class, and speak differently from one another. Occupational, languages that are associated with one occupation. An example of this is legal language, which uses Latin and archaic or old words like Herbie regularly. Bilingualism, fluency in or use of two languages. Psycholinguistics, investigate and describe the psychological processes that makes it possible for humans to master and use language. One of the things done up under this is language processing, reading, writing, speaking, listening, and memory. For instance, how words on paper are turned into meaning in the mind.
Let's talk about computational linguistics, the branch of linguistics in which the technique of computer science are applied to the analysis and synthesis of language and speech, are used in systems like speech recognition, text-to-speech, and voice response. Let's proceed. Neurolinguistics, the study of how language is represented in the brain, that is, how and where our brain store our knowledge of the language or languages that we speak, understand, read, and write. What happened in our brain as we acquire that knowledge and what happened as we use it in our everyday lives. A good example of this is when we understand or say a word like apple, we're likely to use information about what apples look, feel, smell, and taste like, even thought we aren't aware of doing this.
Reason why we studying linguistics. Linguistics help us understand our world apart from simply understanding the intricacies details of world languages. This knowledge can be applied to improve communication between people, contributing to translation activities, assisting in literacy efforts, and treating speech disorders.
Two men were dubbed the father of linguistics. Abraham Noam Chomsky. Abraham Noam Chomsky is an American linguist, cognitive scientist, philosopher, historical essayist, political activist, and social critic. He is called the father of modern linguistics because of his associated with having shaped up the base of the contemporary linguistic with his language acquisition and innateness theories. Ferdinand de Saussure was a Swiss linguist, semiomatician, and philosopher. His ideas laid the foundation for many significant developments in both linguistics and semiotics in the 20th century. Founder of modern linguistics and semiology, the study of sign and symbol and their use of or interpretation. Semiotics include traffic signs, emojis, and emoticons used in electronic communication, and logos and brands used by international corporations to sell us things.
Now, let's talk about the significant events. Various linguistic theories have been developed over the past 2 centuries. The School of Historical Linguistics, the study of how languages change over time, became known in the late 19th century as Neo-Grammarianism. Structuralism in the 20th century was introduced by Ferdinand de Saussure, a Swiss and French linguist whose original ideas were published in a book posthumously, meaning after his death. Generative grammar, meaning a precisely formulated set of rules whose output is and only the sentences of language, was invented and developed by Noam Chomsky, and has been the dominant model of formal linguistics in recent decades. Linguistics as a science began at the beginning of the 19th century and was diachronic in its orientation. The essential theoretical assumption of linguists at this time was that of the sound law, which maintains that environment, later analogical change, a process whereby one form of the language becomes more like another, can mask an earlier change and make it appear irregular by increasing its scope beyond the originally applied environments. In the latter half of the 19th century, linguistic techniques reached a high water mark, and linguists involved are known today as neo-grammarians, meaning a member of a group of linguists in the late 19th century who held that phonetic laws are universally valid and allowed no exceptions. One of their main concerns was the reconstruction of the photo-language Indo-European, from which nearly all languages in Europe and many in the Middle East and northern India are derived. Of structuralism at the beginning of the 20th century is associated with Ferdinand de Saussure, a French-Swiss scholar whose ideas have had a lasting effect on the linguist thought of following generations. Saussure stressed the interaction of elements in a language's structure at any time and maintained that these were interrelated in a network of relations. The generative approach to language change sees it primarily as rule change, which becomes a part of the internalized grammar of a particular generation, and remains so until replaced by another rule change. This type of change is always binary. A rule is either present or not, and as such has been rejected by many, notably by social linguists, who argue that there is often a variable application of rules and that speakers can have a command of several subsystems, whose use is determined by external or social factors.